of prescription drugs. What about the government mandating mental health testing for all our school kids? And when they run these pilot programs, they find that 10% of our students really need help with these psychotropic drugs. That's the kind of drug regulation that we need. We need to stop that. But this whole issue of hemp is rather fascinating, not only in the idea of personal choices and states' rights, but also the stupid complications that come from it. So what do? We talk about our energy problems, and we do because government's too much involved. They subsidize one form of energy and they prohibit the other form of energy. They put roadblocks in front of nuclear energy, and then they go and subsidize raising corn to make ethanol, which doesn't make any economic sense. Now, the Brazilians know how to make ethanol from sugarcane, and they can actually sell us ethanol made in Brazil cheaper than we can make it from corn in this country. But what happened? We put a tariff on it to punish you, so you have to pay more for it. But there is a better source of ethanol, and it happens to be hemp. The founders were great. They knew how important freedom of choice is and how valuable the marketplace is. Government bureaucrats and politicians are incapable of making correct economic decisions. They're capable of only making mistakes. This whole notion that the federal government has to tell us, what we can eat and drink and smoke leads to some other silly things. Because today, can you believe this? Can you believe that the federal government has regulations on the delivery of raw milk? Now that is real dangerous, giving you that much freedom that you can make up your own mind about whether or not you can drink whole milk. But there are restrictions and restraints, and it just goes on and on. And it comes from the concession that we need a little bit of government or a little bit of welfare. I've heard so many times over the years that, yes, I'm opposed to this welfare system, I'm opposed to this, unless you need it. But if you concede it and say, well, there's only a few people that need it, and there has to be a safety net. The problem with that argument is you assume it's going to be a small percentage of people that are going to get the help, but you've conceded 100% of the principle. And then what happens is if there's something that comes for free, you subsidize something, you get more of it, and it leads to the devastating complications of what a welfare society comes to. But not only that, is so often the good motivations, the moral high ground that the other side so often have, is it doesn't work out. It doesn't really help those people, whether it's domestic welfare or national and foreign welfare. What it generally helps are the people who are in power and in control in the corporations. If you have a housing program, and we've just witnessed what happens when the government gets involved in directing housing money and the malinvestment through the Federal Reserve. So what they do is they end up doing the same thing over and over again. And what we need to do is break up this cycle and say that we have to stop this, because if not, it'll bankrupt and destroy our country and destroy our liberties. There's one issue that frequently I barely mentioned, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more tonight. And that is the bum rap we get who believe in freedom that we don't care about the environment. You know, that is just not true. The environment, if you think about it, has been damaged very often by bad federal government regulations. The dependency on government to build our rivers and our dams and our levees and say that government will take care of us, and they build them in the wrong places and we have these consequences. But the environment can be protected by the marketplace and strict adherence to property rights. People do not... None of us have a right to pollute our neighbor's property. We don't have a right to pollute their property, their air, or their water. A strict adherence to this would protect the environment. But just like in welfare, the corporations benefit. In some of the rules and regulations in the environment, certain corporations benefit by that as well. Somebody abuses the system. That's why government should be very minimal in protecting liberty. This does not give you license. Liberty is not license. It means that you have a right to your own life, but you don't have a right to do any harm to your neighbor's property or another person. That is the one limitation that we have. One thing that I believe is coming out as a consequence of the campaign in the primary has been transitioned to the Campaign for Liberty. And now we've had a grand 3 days, and we're climaxing that campaign right now. And there's every reason in the world for us to be energized. All I can say is a year and a half ago, I had no idea what it would lead to. And it's led to a lot more than I ever dreamed of. But I firmly believe now that our day is coming. The conditions are such that there is room now for the defense of liberty. And the people know that the system we have is not working. It's not working economically. It's not working monetarily. Our foreign policy is not working. And therefore, they're looking for answers. They will not welcome us with open arms. We've found that out. But there is a vacuum out there. And the vacuum is not in one political party. It is pervasive. It's throughout the country. It is throughout the political system. But our views are just as pervasive. Ideas spread. They can't stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government. You know, they like to describe us being on the fringe and a little bit kooky now and then. But isn't that rather strange? We talk about these strange things like balanced budgets, personal liberty, privacy, a sound national defense, defend this country. And we define, and they want to say that these are bizarre ideas. But it's time now for some just very good common sense. You know, they harp about the need to be around the world. And right now, the candidates